This is Start, Grow, Manage, where we help entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and freelancers achieve the impact, freedom, and wealth you imagined back when you started your company. At Start, Grow, Manage, our tools, practices, and processes help you engage, energize, and execute on building a business that empowers an extraordinary life. Learn more about our programs and how they can fuel your fire at startgrowmanage.com/learn more. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to the 6th episode of the Start, Grow, Manage podcast. I have no idea how hard it is for me to say that last part and not say episode again, because it's all I can think about is saying episode again the second time. I am Joe.
And I am Jeff.
Episode 6, they never said we would make it.
Who said that?
Well, somebody said that.
Really?
No, it's rhetorical. You'd understand that if you knew anything about communication. You really would.
You do know that I have a second major in rhetoric and communications, right?
Yeah, and
so maybe you just aren't very good at asking rhetorical questions. I mean, I'm just saying, right? I mean, it could be me. I
don't know. We did tell people last time. Maybe it's you. So maybe it was me. I'll consider that.
Anyway, so last time we started a conversation. We were talking about values, if you remember.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about values, and we started the conversation around hiring for values. And I kind of wanted to talk about the economy sucks, but I don't know. We're going to have lots of sucky economy time, so we can talk about that in a little bit. I think now what would be interesting is to really talk about that hiring for core values and how you hire for core values, because I think this is actually something that I learned from you, Joe. I spent a lot of my entrepreneurial career before really figuring out what I was doing wrong, hiring for skill. I was very focused on what kind of experience do people have? Are they a high enough level of skill for what I need? Can I hand over this stuff to them right away without me having to train them? I was really focused on the skill side of things. And it led, as much as I tried to have a culture, I didn't really do a good job of defining values. I'll be honest with you. No, let me rephrase it. I didn't define values at all. So it was really hard for me to get people to sort of to stay in the organization, which is one of those reasons why I know that it's us and not the people who are not staying. But I think just as well, like when you sat me down and said, Jeff, no, you've got to hire for core values, not hire for capability. You can train people. And it's interesting when we talk about the economy and operating in a terrible economy, right? It's interesting that you actually want to train people. You want people who will do things the way you want them done, not the way that they learn to do them somewhere else. So you actually want to train people. The problem is finding people that align with your values. And when you find people that align with your values, then you can work with them, you can train them, you can create that team, the team can grow, you can do things together, you can make the whole thing work.
But you can't do it. You can't do it
if you're only worried about capabilities the whole time, right? So anyway, that's a long way of me saying I learned from you, Joe. See, there's something valuable there. Anyway, I learned from you, Joe, this idea of hiring for core values, and I thought, let's just really take an episode and talk about that.
Yeah.
And one of the more inspiring stories that I find, or that like you like to tell, is the Zappos story and how Zappos hires for core values. So
I love that, because
tell us a little bit about Zappos, Joe.
Those guys, they have this really great set of values, right? And the thing that you have to do is when you're hiring for core values, you have to have core values questions. You have to have ways of testing and seeing how that person is. So you could ask scenario questions that really get people engaged, and there's a bunch of different things that you could do, right? But Zappos really goes all the way in terms of their expense to make sure that people have their values. And their last value is humble. And that's a hard value to test for, right? Like, how do you test for that value, right? Are you humble? I can't tell you if I'm humble, right?
Yeah, I'm so humble.
Yeah, I'm so humble. Let me tell you all about it, right? Let me tell you 10 humble things I did this week, right? So you can't do that, right? So they have this whole, right? They have this whole process, right, for hiring at Zappos. And it's interesting because the way they do it is they, put you through a series of pre-interviews. And if they decide that they really want you there, then they buy you a ticket and fly you out to their headquarters. Then they send a van to pick you up, right? And then the van picks you up and brings you to headquarters. And then there's somebody waiting for you at the door. It's like, hey, welcome to Zappos. Listen, we don't know what you want to do here, but we're interested in you. We'd love for you to find out what's going on here. So why don't you just walk around, talk to anybody that you want, ask whatever question you want to ask, right? Don't be shy. That's where the food is before your interview, which is at 2:00 over in that office over there. Go get some food, right? And then after that, we'll interview you, and then, that'll be that, right? And so then the person goes around and asks all their questions, and they go eat, and they interact with everybody, and then they, boom, then they interview them, then they put them back in the van, and they shuffle them off to the airport, right? Then the
van with windows, right? It's not one of those like
yeah, van with windows and all that stuff, right?
There's no like mask,
no hoods, no none of that stuff, right? But here's the interesting thing. Then they bring back the van driver, and they bring back the key people that you interacted with, and they ask them if you belong in Zappos or not as an employee.
Yeah.
And they get to make the decision of whether you belong on their team or not. And it doesn't matter if it's a janitor, the van driver, the person who served you the food at the cafeteria. If you didn't show up as the core values in that place, you don't get to work there.
Yeah.
That's a great expense to go through to make sure.
I don't know. Is that expensive? I don't think that's expensive.
Well,
what you're doing is you're just asking the driver, and you're asking.
Well, what I mean is you fly somebody out, have them meet all the people on your team to make sure. You could have hired them over the phone, but you fly them out.
You're always going to hire people. I think the message for me is less about the expense. It's more about, just asking. They're asking the van driver. They're asking the cafeteria worker. I also think it's interesting that I would find that incredibly intimidating. By the way, not that I have a humility issue. I'm incredibly humble. No, but. I'm amazed. No, but the idea of just go around and ask people, like, that is so not me, by the way. So I think I might pass the humility test, but I don't know. I wouldn't know. I'm just gonna go interrupt somebody in the middle of their workday and ask them a question. Someone I don't even know. That's not gonna happen. So I think Zappos would have just. They clearly want people who are extreme extroverts, and I am.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing.
Extrovert.
They want extreme extroverts that are going to communicate that way with their clients, and that's really what they're looking for. So, if you made it that far that they flew you there,
yeah,
you aced all the other stuff, right? For them to actually fly you there, but then for them to test every single value, they're willing to go that extra 10 miles if they have to, because that's what it takes to have somebody on your team that is really living who the company is, who can be the word of the, if you think of it, when you hire somebody that's client facing, they are the word of the company.
Yeah.
They are when the client interacts with them, they're interacting with the whole company. And it doesn't matter what that person does.
No, I think that's true. I do also think you have to be careful for unintended consequences, right? So I tend to be very good with clients, but I'm not the type to go interrupt people, and so if your whole thing is about going up and interrupting people, in order to understand if they're humble, you might have to ask yourself whether your test is the right test, like if you're testing the right things.
I don't think that. See, I think that's for a different value. I think in terms of humble, who they're interviewing is the people, the van driver, the people who interacted with them in positions where that person has an opportunity to be humble and have a conversation with that person,
or not, or be a jerk. Really, what they're doing is
did they get in the van and were they a jerk? Did they get in the van and stay on their phone the whole time? Did they create conversation? Was there this opportunity where you actually felt you were with another human being?
But that's interesting that you would say so. So for me, the question that I would ask would be, was the person a jerk to you?
Yes.
I don't expect anybody to have a conversation with the drivers. I try to avoid conversations with the drivers at all costs. And to me, it isn't a sign of anything. If you're chatty, fine. If you're not chatty, why should you have to be forced to have a conversation with the driver? But this goes back to, what are the things that you are looking for, right?
And so what's important? What's important in the organization?
Chatty, right? What I would do is, but there are these people who are just really obnoxious and rude to drivers or food service workers, and I would definitely want to exclude them from my party. You know who else does that is Pret a Manger, or at least they used to. I don't know if the story is still the same, or this is back over when it was in the UK. It used to be the entire team would hire somebody, right? So
wow, that's great.
It wasn't just the manager of the store, but the entire team would interview, and the entire team would hire somebody, and there was just so much of it around fit. And if you think about Pret, it's not a lot of skill there. And don't be offended, Pret people. I'm sure there's a lot of skill in like designing recipes and whatnot, but you're not designing, nuclear bombs here. So it's like, whether somebody can serve a sandwich or not, probably most everybody can, but are they going to fit into the culture?
Yes.
You're only going to find that out, by exposing them to the culture, sitting down, having coffee, figuring it out, and letting the team make that decision. So everybody on the team has to agree that this person's a hire, which I think is another interesting example. And then you like to tell the closet story example. Tell us your
this company. I wish I could remember their name, but they what they do is they build custom walk-in closets, and I don't mean like custom walk-in closet. I mean like $1 million custom walk-in closets. They are artisans. These guys are amazing carpenters. Everything is wood. Everything is like exquisitely designed, right? And if you're going to be a carpenter that's going to work there, you have to first interview with the executive team. They make you go through all these personality assessments, all this crazy stuff. And then the final part of the interview,
and frankly, there will be some capability assessment.
There's no definitely for those guys, like you have to be top of the top. You have to be like in the top 100 carpenters in the country, even to go interview there. So forget about it. Like you have to be there, right?
No, but that's what I just wanted to say. It's not like we're saying capabilities don't ever matter. Capabilities do matter.
Absolutely.
The deciding factor has to come back to values. Anyway, sorry, Joe, I interrupted you.
No, but
it's my humility just bubbled right through all over. If I could only contain it.
If I could only contain it, right?
If I could be a less humble person.
So they go through all this thing, right? So that the person can go for a day on a build, right? So they take this guy who had gone through this whole thing with them, right? And they take him on a build for the day, right? And they do all this all this stuff, and then they bring back the team and say, well, how did he do it? It's like, he's an amazing artist, and he did all this stuff we'd never seen before. This is great. It was awesome. And then they go, okay, well, then we're ready to hire them. And they're like, nope, not so fast. It's like, well, why not? He says, well, at the end of the day, he just took all his tools and threw them in his tool bag. And that's not who we are. Everything has to go back in its place.
Yeah.
That's who we are. So we can't hire him. So it didn't matter that this guy had just stuff they'd never seen before, all this amazing skill and all that. But who they are people that put everything back in its place at the end of the day.
And again, what I'm hearing, what I didn't understand the first time you said that told the story was, he threw everything in the tool bag. I'm like, what else are you supposed to do with your tools? Like, throw them in the back of the truck? I mean, it sounds like a pretty good deal that he's throwing them in the tool bag, right? For me, like, it's the step would be like, if I were the one, it would be like, did he put the tools in the tool bag? But they're like, yeah, of course you put the tools in the tool bag, but you have to put the chisel in the chisel slot. Right?
Yes. You have to put the chisel in the chisel slot, and you have to put the hammer in the hammer slot. And if you don't do that, if you're not somebody who puts everything in its place, you can't work there, because that's how you'll work.
So I'm out.
It's this whole notion. If you really think about the core values, what the underlying communication is, like, how you do anything is how you do everything, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're going to operate out of accordance with our values here, you'll do it out on the field. You'll do it in the world. And so when you're interviewing for values, that's what you're looking for, is that kind of fit.
And it's interesting. So, and not to make this all about me, but
but please go ahead. I'm not going to stop you.
I'm going to. So I clearly would be the wrong person. Like, they wouldn't hire me but for many reasons. But clearly, even if I were a carpenter, they wouldn't hire me for that. And they shouldn't, right? Because I'm not detail oriented like that, right? You want a new design closet and to incorporate technology and figure things out and have it. You
want a closet that dresses you?
Yeah, exactly. Then talk to me, right?
Jeff.
You want a closet that does your email marketing for you? I'm your guy.
Talk to Jeff.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you want to be sure that all the corners are straight, because I can't be bothered with straight corners, right? That's why you're going to see stuff from me. It's got a typo here and there, because, I'm the ideas guy. You want a closet that does your email marketing for you while it dresses you? I'm the guy, right? You want a closet that is beautiful, artisanal, $1 million, and it doesn't do anything for you? Like, it's worth $1 million and it doesn't even do anything? You got to hire somebody who puts the tools in the right place of the toolbox, right? Same thing with, web design and all of that. It's like, you don't hire someone like me to do your web design. Joe, you're kind of closer to that, because you're like, you should, if you were to look at Joe's desk, he's got all the cables tied and everything organized and right where it needs to be. And mine looks a little bit like a tornado just came through. And that's because I just straightened it out, right? So
it's true though.
But that's it, right? But different. And so if you're looking for different values, you're looking for different capabilities, you're looking for different things, you want to test those in different ways and pay close attention. I was once at a consulting firm that their thing was no jerks. They said no jerks, and they hired this guy, and the guy was a real jerk. And I'm like, well, I guess that no jerks thing's out the window, and somebody, well, but he comes with all these clients, and it's that same sort of thing. Well, what's more important? No jerks? Like, we are a company of no jerks, or you come with the clients, and they were clearly choosing come with clients over no jerks, right? So
but there's a tremendous cost to that. There's a tremendous cost to that, because people that were on that team and before, so there's a state change, pre-jerk and post-jerk.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
And when jerk happens in a no jerk space, you have violated the word of the company. You've violated what you said the company is all about. and people lose respect for the organization itself because it gets very clear that it's no jerks unless it impacts the bottom line. And there can be no unless in core values.
And that's the thing, right? And
that's why they're core.
Dramatically impacts the culture. It dramatically impacts people's ability to do the work. And then, like we talked about last time, it pushes you into that transactional environment where core values are purely transactional. Your work is purely transactional. It's perfectly okay to be a jerk as long as you make money. And now all of a sudden that glue that you'd so carefully put together to try and keep people is no longer working, and people leave.
Yes.
Right? And that's the fundamental flaw with not taking care of your core values, with not managing your core values, and not hiring for your core values. And I think that's a really important thing. And I know we've had so much more success hiring for core values and doing that. And I think we see with our clients the way that we really focus them on asking some questions around core values, taking them out, for coffee, encouraging people to hire someone who might be slightly less skilled, but more of a fit.
Skills are 100% trainable.
Because skills are trainable, guys. And that's even at this artisanal level, this super high level, they're still going to have to train the person coming in on the way that they want their closets built.
I have a client that just celebrated the fact that they hit this KPI. They now only have to interview 25 people to hire one, right? When they started this process, they had to interview like 65, 70 people to hire one. Yeah. And then they narrowed the gate and the pre-interview process so that they could now they're down to 25-1, right?
Well, we gotta get it down to 5-1.
Yeah, we'll get it down to 5. We'll get it down to 5-1, but it is really great because they can start an interview and 10 minutes into the interview end it if the questions don't go right.
Yeah.
They start the interview and they're like, okay, well, thank you for being here. The interview would take 5 minutes to an hour. That's what they tell every participant. If you were there for 5 minutes, it's over.
There's always that one guy who went and after 5 minutes and then he turns around to, his, life partner or whatever and says, I think I nailed it. It was only 5 minutes. I'm in. They like me so much. They like me so much. They only interviewed me for 5 minutes. It's my humility. They just couldn't deal with it. It was just so amazing. They're like, oh my God, you're so humble. We have to hire you.
You almost made me spray my desk with coffee, man.
But the type, right? And then they're so surprised. They're blown away. Like, wait, you didn't hire me? Like, I probably should have been a clue after one question. We said, thank you. This interview's over.
Very, very cool.
All right. So core values, interview for core values, right? It really comes down to identifying what those core values are. And again, we'll have a couple of links on the Learn More page for core values, thinking about core values. It's kind of an extension of the last episode and some thoughts on how to frame some of these questions. Think about how you want to test those. What are some things that you can do to test those core values? And, it doesn't have to be a perfect test. It doesn't have to be a scientific test. It can be just sitting around and having a cup of coffee and asking different questions about life and seeing how somebody responds. Is this a person ultimately, is this a person that you like, right? Ultimately, is this a person who's going to fit in with the organization? That's what you're trying to get at.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the whole thing.
And that's the idea. So, really think about that, especially if you're struggling hiring people or you're concerned about the economy sucking. And we'll talk a little bit more about that conundrum in the next episode. For now, Joe, what do people have to remember?
They have to remember that they are loved. All right, folks. We love you.
All right, guys.
Thank you for being in our lives.
And we'll talk more soon.
Thanks for joining us, and a special thanks to our subscribers. Consider becoming one right now and tap into our insights and instincts to help drive your business vision and success. Remember, you didn't start your business to feel frustration. You started it for freedom. We can help you discover the impact, freedom, and wealth you always imagined. Learn more at startgrowmanage.com/learn more.